So much hair. I can't believe those products are working, man.
Yeah, Hutch is in witness protection, everyone. Now he goes by Brad. So welcome, new Hutch.
Thank you. I think I saw a clip of him crashing out and screaming on this show with somebody, so hopefully I won't have to do that.
Do you have
I
any
wonder
idea
who.
how little that narrows it down, Brad?
Oh my god. Thank you for
Brad, thank you
coming
for
though, Brad.
joining. Everyone wondering, Hutch is having some family issues. Everyone's okay, but he once again has missed a week. He'll be back with a vengeance next week. But we have Brad on as a guest. So, Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah. Tell us about yourself, Brad. You're an independent journalist with a vast history. Give us your elevator pitch.
Oh, well, a vast history. I would love to dissect that as a descriptor, but I would describe myself as a right of center politically, but a little bit politically homeless these days. I obviously was a very big critic of Biden Harris, so uh, I was a little bit ran more in conservative media circles, but I'm extremely critical of the Trump administration this time around. I was in the first Trump term. I'd never endorsed Trump. I never voted for Trump, but there was a lot more I agreed with, and I viewed the people that ran it with a lot more seriousness and respect than I do this time around. So I was a little bit more ingratiated in the conservative media ecosystem back then, but now I'm kind of off just in the wilderness on YouTube and podcasting. I talk a lot about, I do a lot of media criticism, which we're going to get to Fox News, which I've had to roast as of late after having been on there a lot of times over the years. I'm probably banned now, but I do a lot of like internet bullshit and just kind of infotainment content. And then I give some serious political analysis, but yeah, I'm off in my own little space because I don't really fit in the GOP, but I'm certainly not a Democrat or going to be welcome in progressive circles anytime soon.
I have an observation, Brad. So there are more and more people who are ostensibly engaging in this podcaster war. You've heard of this, yes?
Yeah, of
On
course.
certain issues. And I think that there's this perception among some people, maybe on the left, that the waters of Trump critical Republicans, that they're getting like more and more populated by people, and that your position, you're not actually as homeless as you once were. I kind of push back on that because a lot of the people who are now sort of being a little bit more Trump critical of in general with respect to policy are still holding their punches back. They're still restraining themselves a little bit. You know, if you think about Tucker Carlson, whatever, they're not going the full distance that you've gone in critiquing Trump. And so, do you think that there's a horizon in which more people are going to join you? Or are you out on an island for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think it's a matter of what they're breaking with Trump on, actually. And so I think when you're identifying the podcast wars, I mean, a lot of it is essentially they're attacking Trump for not being MAGA enough. So it doesn't really, in their view, and you could debate whether
Right. Yeah.
they're correct in their analysis, but it's like Tucker is honestly more extreme than he's ever been if you listen to his actual views.
Sure.
But he's upset about the, and maybe I agree with some of his critiques of the Iran war. I'm not saying I don't, but it's like they are breaking with Trump in certain ways, but they're not breaking with MAGA. It's not like they're coming back to some moderate position or seeking compromise. Like they want someone more extreme and more hardline on a bunch of different issues. And then I think like their critiques and my critiques are probably only the smallest of Venn diagrams, mostly two circles. I imagine there's some overlap, but
Well, I was going to say, Brad, I when I say vast history, I've known about you for quite some time because I've seen you debate Sam Cedar. I've seen you on Piers Morgan. And I always got the impression you were more like, I guess, libertarian. You said center right at the beginning, but maybe could you go a little more in depth, like your political journey of kind of tepidly agreeing with some of the Trump policies back in 2016 to the full on like disavowal of like MAGA as a movement
The
and like
tax cuts.
yeah,
You love
and
the
like
tax
yeah,
cuts.
where you sit with that now, and like who maybe your ideal candidate would be if you were still to vote, like as a if you would be Republican, if you would be more independent, like where would that come from?
I mean, if Rand Paul runs in 2028, I'll crawl through glass to vote for him, even though I disagree with him on a number of things. I've always had a lot of respect for him, and I've appreciated like he actually believes in what he believes, and we have a lot of alignment. So that would be probably the only way I would re-enter the Republican primary space, or I don't even consider myself a Republican anymore, though I did The super short version is that I don't like to use the word libertarian because I think it's associated with a dogmatism that I don't share, and then with a political party that is shambolic and like just not something I would ever want to be affiliated with. And then I am not somebody who spends a lot of time or claims to have a lot of knowledge or expertise in like foreign affairs, in geopolitics. And so I hesitate, and that's not my focus is on culture and domestic politics and policy.
But you
And
also have a
so,
background in the economics, right? You have a degree.
right. I
Yeah.
studied economics. I was originally a policy correspondent, wrote about economics, wrote about legislation. But so the word libertarian is also associated with kind of a hardline anti-interventionist school of thought that I'm sympathetic to, but don't want to be confused for as entirely endorsing. And regardless, it's a label, and labels tend to turn people off, but it's the closest label, maybe classically liberal, though no one knows what that really means.
That's
Um,
associated with a lot of grifty characters. I don't know
Well,
if you
who-
use that
yeah,
one.
who now-
Unless
Dave
you
Rubin.
associate yourself with Dave Rubin.
Wait,
Tim
can we
Pool.
pause real quick on Dave Rubin real quick because he had a really funny moment with respect to the
his
Iran
Iran
war.
war predictions were so
Can
bad.
you explain it, Brad? Wait, Brad, can you explain it, please?
He predicted Iran would not close the Strait of Hormuz, and then what was
After
his
they
other-
already did. After they already did, and he also said, "Oh, the oil prices, it's just going to be a little blip. Maybe a ship or two might have a little problem or something." And
I
then,
tried
right after,
I see.
yeah.
What I don't understand about that was the confidence with which he said it. First of all, and then two, as a pundit, why do you even make predictions like that? Because if you're right, you don't really get anything. But if you're wrong, you're going to get absolutely clowned on. So I try to avoid hardline predictions. But sorry,
He predicted that Biden wouldn't finish his term and that he would leave the internet if Biden did.
Well,
predicted,
I'm sorry, that was not the craziest prediction, bro. That was
okay, but he
could have died in office
is,
at any time at his age.
He got clowned on. He got clowned on for that prediction.
But I would
and
never
he's still out
promise
here
to
making
leave the
predictions
internet over something like
There you
that,
go.
and then not. That's the
Fair
part
enough,
I
fair
don't
enough.
understand.
Right.
Sorry, the short version is that I went to an extremely far left college. I studied in a socialist, like actually Marxist, not in a pejorative sense. The professors identify as Marxist economics department. It was like the most hyper woke, censorious, illiberal, in my view, campus. I was really kind of repulsed by that. I know that's not me. What do I like? That is not my values. And so then I kind of went through a journey of figuring out what are my values, because Trump was running for president at that time. I was never really a fan of him. I ended up voting for Gary Johnson in 2016. What is Lepo in hindsight is so quaint, right? The fact that was a disqualifying moment, and now we have all these moments. It really, maybe it shouldn't have been, but
It's almost nostalgic, yeah.
and then over
Or
time,
the scream from that guy.
The
Oh my
bean
God, I'm not remembering
Ah!
scream.
his name.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that too. Anyway, over time, I started working in conservative media. As the Trump years progressed, I realized like maybe I was more on the libertarian side of things, that I was more interested in new media and the internet. My first boss at a conservative magazine was telling us, you guys should be focused on what's happening on cable news. And I'm like, well, what about what's on the homepage of Reddit? And he looks at me and he goes, what's Reddit? And I'm like, oh boy. This is I'm gonna have to make my own path here, because the other thing about me is I've always been kind of a little, maybe arrogant's not the right word, but I've always backed myself, and I've never wanted to wait my turn. There's a lot of that in conservative media. It's like, well, if you wait 20 years, maybe you can be a Fox News host or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm going to start yapping now, and I'm uppity like that. And so I had to make my own way. Built up a small little audience that sustains me in my own little corner of people who are somewhere. I mean, they're all over the place politically, actually, that watch me. But I'm saying, like, in terms of myself, definitely still more center right. It's funny because the values that I believe in have not changed. I had somebody close to me who watches my podcast, but is not like a political person, be like, you've been sounding very liberal lately. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they just listed a bunch of examples of me criticizing Republican politicians. And I'm like, you understand that's not what the word liberal means in the political, that's not an ideological thing. Conservative is not supporting Republicans and liberal is supporting like those are for, I'm like, I haven't changed a single position. So the things that I believe in, essentially moderate social views, not socially conservative or traditionalist, but not woke or progressive, free market economics, fiscal hawk deficit, hawk conservatism, free speech, limited government, constitutionalism. Those things all made me like a far right fascist, transphobic bigot or whatever for years. And now those things make me an anti-Trump rhino libtard. So
well, you could be both. We might explore this later, but we don't get to get too contentious before the news. Also, Guy, speaking of being patient and waiting your turn, which Brad doesn't like doing, you were waiting your turn. I saw you. You wanted to say
It's all
something.
good. He's our guest. I'm curious, Brad, were you on the Trump train in 2024?
No, God, no.
No? Okay. So did you vote for Trump in 2024?
I've never voted for Trump. I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016. I think I was going to vote for George Jorgensen in 2020 and then just did not bother. And then in 2024, I voted for Chase Oliver, the Libertarian Party nominee.
Wouldn't vote for a black woman, huh? Too woke?
No, I just won't vote for a DEI hire. Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to trigger you. I'm just trying to trigger you.
Libs triggered right now.
One last thing real quick, but what we get formalities out of the way. You mentioned Rand Paul.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that exchange with Markwayne Mullin? So Markwayne Mullin, for the audience who doesn't understand, he is up for DHS secretary to replace Kristi Noem, who did a wonderful job. And they had a little bit of a hearing, a little bit of a spat. What were your thoughts?
I'm Team Rand Paul, and I don't view it as a personal grudge the way that some people in conservative media have tried. I view it as a fitness thing. Like, for me, political violence is a red line, and it's a character and fitness test. And to not be able to apologize for it is insane.
Was it political violence, or was it neighbor violence?
I should clarify.
They weren't fighting over
but the
politics,
support for it is political. So what
he
I'm
basically
saying
said, like, I get why they went after him.
I agree with you. I should be clear. Rand Paul's neighbor did not assault him for political reasons, but the celebration of the violence against Rand Paul is because people hate his politics. And so that's what I'm saying is like a political violence issue.
Well, but Rand Paul did say in that exchange with Markwayne Mullin that his neighbor is a Trump hater or something like that. So he was implying to some degree that it was politically motivated.
I don't think that's been necessarily proven or borne out. That's not my understanding of it. Maybe
it also doesn't matter because the support by itself, even if it were or were not, I mean, if it were, that's just like extra gravy, I guess. But also the exchange that happened with Sean O'Brien, I think he's still the president.
That's what I was saying. He's a union guy. Teamsters, I think. Markwayne Mullin is unhinged. Like, he's a violent, hot-headed guy. And I think we need somebody in charge of DHS who's going to be a cool head.
Do you also do you have this affinity? I shouldn't say affinity, but do you like Thomas Massie as well? He's the other libertarian guy, and
I agree with him on a fair number of things over the years. He's always been a little bit out there for me, but I at least have respect for him. And listen, the same way I have some respect for Bernie Sanders, because I think Bernie Sanders believes what he believes. Whereas I think 98% of the people in the Senate and the House are just full of complete shit and would literally adapt to any political ideology to obtain power and preserve Klingon power. I have a lot of appreciation for Thomas Massie over the years, but he's always had a little bit of a strain to him that I'm not on board with, in terms of like conspiratorial bent, like Maha bent, anti-vaccine bent. I'm not on board with that, but I have appreciated a fair amount of his stuff over the years.
Although he's a bit of a grandstander, according to Trump, and I actually don't disagree with some of it. I will say, though, it seems that in terms of your assessment of political figures, something approaching genuineness or authenticity is something that you deeply value as a virtue in and of itself. And that's not too dissimilar to at least what a lot of these populist types claim to care about. So I just noticed a little pattern there that you, in some ways, respect Bernie more than you would perhaps a person like Chuck Schumer or one of the opportunist Democrats, just by virtue of them staying true to some kind of coherent principle, at least to themselves. Yeah,
frankly, because I think you can have a conversation with people who actually believe things. You can try to find common ground. I have a lot less patience and interest in snakes and people who tweeted. And honestly, you're talking about kind of the Democratic gradations, just because of the nature of my background and my work. I perceive more of the Republican gradations. And so There are people who've wanted a war with Iran for years, and I've heard their arguments, and they truly believe that, and they think it's in America's best interest. And there's people who think it's a terrible idea. And then there's a third group of people who was tweeting that Kamala was going to start a war with Iran and that World War III, and Trump was the pro-peace president, and God bless President Trump and America first. And then the second he started a war, they said, thank God President Trump is defeating Iran. Those people, I just have no fucking time. Like, how can I take a word you say
Joe
seriously?
Kent is one of those people. That's why I really despise that he's being martyred by some people on the left, this Joe Kent guy, because it's so obviously a political expedient that he's taken the position that he has now. The guy goes from being, a Bush supporter to a Bernie Sanders supporter to a pro-Israel Trump guy talking favorably about intervention in Iran, and now he starts talking that Israel, when, I don't believe a single word that comes out of his mouth. Ditto to Tucker Carlson. I think these guys care about themselves, principally, and maybe a few, a clutch of political allies and their families. But really, I don't think that Joe Kent should be someone who's lionized, even if we can make hay out of the
well, I do think that
he's making.
The kind of like liberal media apparatus is very too quick to award this like strange new respect, when Joe Kent is like a person with alt-right ties. He's a 2020 election truther. He was considered like a far-right fringe crazy congressional candidate when he ran for office. I remember it at the time. And then the second he like resigns in protest, which I actually do appreciate people who resign rather than people who completely cuck, like Tulsi Gabbard their entire career. And she's on the list of like 3 or 4 people I've been egregiously wrong about over the years. But I respect that. But it is funny to me how suddenly it's like the New York Times or CNN they're talking about Joe Kent, decorated war veteran, has bravely come out and told the truth about Trump. It's like, okay, but 5 minutes ago you were telling me that, not 5 minutes ago, several years ago now, this guy had no credibility. And it's like, I actually don't think he has a ton of credibility. I appreciate him resigning if he doesn't believe in it. I think the things that he says in his letter should be taken seriously, but I'm not going to suddenly pretend that I view him as having a ton of credibility just because he's anti-Trump now.
The Michael Cohen thing, where like that guy is like grifting a book, he's like starting a podcast, and
did Midas Touch team up with him? Like
they did,
possibly, yeah,
they did, and he can be funny sometimes, but like, first of all, he was not the most credible witness in the New York criminal trial. I mean, he had a lot of problems there, and sometimes I just think that like all these ex-Trump people, I just look at them and I'm like, you stood by this guy for so long, and you have no credibility in my eyes. So many MAGA people to me are like that. The ones who make full mea culpas, I guess. Michael Cohen, I guess, did one, and he did eventually, testify. But a lot of these guys, I don't trust them.
Is it? Yeah. Sorry, is it Pisco? Is how I should say
it's Pisco, but it's Pisco.
Pisco.
Yeah.
I want to say it. No, I want to say it right.
Yeah.
Pisco. I have a hard time with the Never Trump people who also then suddenly become fully liberal. I actually have more appreciation for the people who come out against Trump, go Never Trump, but are still pro-life, pro-gun, pro-cap. Like, even if they have views maybe I disagree with. Maybe they're still anti-gay marriage, and I disagree with them on that. But it's like, I actually think it's worse if you suddenly now you agree with MSNBC on everything. I'm like, well, then I really...
Yeah.
Well, you question like, well, if that was what was tying you to Trump in the first place, if all
was
of
it
your
just
values...
political expediency or tribalism the first time?
Yeah, as much as I want them to be on my side.
With some of these neocons coming out, and sorry, there's a bit of a delay, so I don't mean to interrupt you guys. There's a bit of a some of these like David Frum types, these people who are big war hawks, or who supported Bush. I don't know so much about the Bulwark guys, but who are now like condemning the Iran war in the strongest possible terms. And I know that there's a way that you can sort of walk that path where it's like, well, I don't trust Trump to do it, and the way he did it was very unconstitutional. And listen, the constitutional issue is very salient to me. But I do find it funny sometimes that the Bulwark is really shifting towards like almost pro-Mamdani at times, almost very willing to embrace liberal candidates. The hate for Trump is so strong. And so, yeah, I think that there's there needs to be some sort of recognition about why those aspects of your political identity have shifted.
Well, it's funny because the rationale you just described about how those guys are now against this war is exactly how J.D. Vance and the longtime anti-interventionist conservatives justified their support for the war. J.D. Vance literally says, well, the regime change wars were bad before because we had stupid people in charge. And now we have our people in charge, the best and brightest, of course. But it's like that is literally just the perverse justification. I don't just Trump to do it. It's like
everything they said about opposing regime change is apparently, well, I'm for regime change if we can do it fast, which they kind of said in Venezuela. And now they're like, yeah, as long as Iran's over in 2 weeks, I'm cool with it. We could just keep doing this. Cuba's next. All right, cool. Like it's very strange how it's like, oh, well, my principle was never anti-imperialism or regime change. It was just that Americans were dying, even though that's clearly not what they meant.
Brad, I'm curious. I've never voted third party. And so it feels like you're aware that the candidate's very unlikely to win, but why would you still do that? I guess, like, because I guess my concern is Kamala or Trump is going to get closer to the vision of this world I want to see, even as a third party voter. And it's almost like you're just giving up control of being able to even nudge things in the direction that you want by voting third party. So what goes into making a decision like that?
Well, a couple things. One is the practical reality that most states don't matter or aren't up for really like meaningful contests, and it's just a handful of battleground states. So, for example, I was a Massachusetts voter for the first several elections of my life. That's where I'm from. I can vote for whoever I want. The Democratic
Charlie Baker's a Republican governor, debunked. Or
no,
I'm
talking about the presidential, presidential top of the ticket. Obviously, this is not true for all races. But like the Democratic candidate is going to win Massachusetts in the Electoral College, then I feel totally free to vote my conscience. I think the closest to that question that you're saying is that for 2024, I was voting in Michigan, which obviously is a swing state, right? Yeah. And I still voted third party, so I feel like that applies more there. I essentially guess that I view myself as somebody who should be a Republican voter based on what I believe. And so I'm withholding my vote more for Trump rather than, but there's just something about, I mean, the Biden-Harris years I viewed as such an abysmal failure. I so out of step with my values, Kamala's platform and beliefs. I also think I take a longer term vision to it as well, that it's like, it's only a throwaway vote until enough people over time do it. And if you just give people, like, you can become a constituency that people feel the need to pander to by withholding your vote in some contexts. And I'm just not a believer that a single vote really makes a huge difference. I don't tend to publicize my votes, and like, I'm not the kind of political commentator who's like whipping votes and saying like, everybody go vote for Kamala, go vote for Trump. Because I come from journalism world, and I still consider myself essentially a form of an editorial journalist in a multimedia fashion. So I reveal who I vote for when I'm asked, but it's not like I'm an electioneer or campaigner, or like, I tell people what I think about the news and about different candidates, but I'm not pushing a vote GOP this election, vote for this person in this race. I don't know if that answers your question. I frankly don't put that much energy into who I cast a ballot for beyond just basic due diligence. I view it as one of the least meaningful things that I do in the political realm.
I think there was a lot that definitely Guy and me and maybe Pisco are all going to disagree with you there on. But guys, do we want to hold any contentious stuff for the end? Because I don't think we'll ever get to the news if we jump into it now.
Oh, sure. We can.
Can we have 5 minutes? Wait.
Save it, guys. Save all your gripes for the end. Because I heard a lot there. I was like, I want to press you on that, Brad. But yeah, let's cover a little news first, because I know this is what happened with Rashad, and we'll never get to the news if we start arguing. We were talking about this a little before the stream started, Brad, but you commented on Fox News coverage of Robert Mueller's death, and I wanted to show, for those of you who have not seen it, the tweet that Trump sent. The Robert Mueller just died.
Read it out loud. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. President. Why did he tweet his name? President Donald J. Trump. Why did he sign his tweet?
He does
Thoughts
that
on guys.
a lot.
I'm tired of people hearing how the left celebrates death when, like, you can find all these, like, maybe pundits, but definitely cringe Twitter people going, oh, haha, Charlie Kirk. And meanwhile, we have the leader of the entire MAGA movement saying, God, I hate this guy for, trying to enact justice for, by the way, producing the report that allegedly exonerates him completely. This is like such a double standard. It pisses me
He was
off.
also not responsible for the aspects of the Russia investigation that the populist right always complain about, namely the start of an opening of Crossfire Hurricane, the FISA warrants against Carter Page that were renewed. And so Robert Mueller really, in the course of that investigation, in my belief, conducted himself with honor. I think he should have come to a charging decision on the obstruction-related stuff. But he and his team stuck to the facts and to the law, and he has a storied career as a prosecutor. He was director of the FBI. He, in the course of the War on Terror, actually, there's a famous episode of him going to the bedside of John Ashcroft, who was then Attorney General, and stopping what they thought was an illegal program that I think now the Congress has authorized in terms of the NSA bulk surveillance. But all that is to say is this man has dedicated his life to public service, and Trump is just a piece of shit.
I mean, it just seemed like par for the course to me. Robert Mueller, this is a guy who served his country. He was in the military. He got awards for bravery and a Purple Star and Purple Heart. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was that big of a deal. You guys think this was a big story that Trump tweeted this out?
No, not really.
Insofar as like it's a perfect encapsulation of everything wrong with the Republican Party in terms of like their criticisms and what they're able to try to hold over the left's head of, you guys have no standards, you got, Obama's so divisive. And it's like every time they come up with a narrative to criticize the left, Trump comes out of the woodwork and just undermines them completely. And it's like, oh no, it turns out like we really can't keep playing defense for this because there's the 180 flip of everything we've said in a Trump tweet somewhere. And I just think it's not a big story, but I appreciate that like Trump is so dumb and stupid and bloviating that he's able to continuously undermine them in this way.
In the sense, it's not a big story in the sense that it's like utterly unsurprising. And it's not like Trump is crossing some new terrain. Everyone knows who he is and has either decided they're okay with it or they're not. It's a big story in the sense that like I found it crazy that Fox News's weekend coverage, they discussed it 6 times and they never mentioned his tweet. And I found that to be insanely propagandistic. I'm like, what are we doing? They even in one of on Fox and Friends, they read George Bush's statement about Mueller's passing, but not Trump's, which I'm not against you mentioning George Bush because I think George Bush originally appointed him or something. And it was a nice enough statement, but it's like the much more newsworthy statement is obviously the current president tweeting, I'm glad he's dead. And what I'll say is I find it frustrating because I'm somebody who finds progressive and I agree with the point that you make that it's not Democratic Party officials that I've heard you guys make in the past, but there is a lot of progressive sentiment and rhetoric online, and it also is manifested in public polling that morally justifies assassinations or killings or celebrates people's death like Charlie Kirk. And I was extremely critical of that. I hate that. But then I agree with you. Many of the Republicans won't say anything about Trump doing that with Rob Reiner, with Mueller, and I find it to be distasteful. And I will absolutely acknowledge that it's significantly worse coming from the president of the United States than coming from left-wing influencers. I think I disagree with the people who say left-wing influencers to dismiss it as if it's insignificant. It's not, in my view, at all. But
I think it is significant, and I want to put something else out there. I do think it's like worse to celebrate the death of someone with respect to assassination, political assassination.
Sure.
Just because of the nature of what it would tend to endorse.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're the same.
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Oh yeah, I don't think you are either. I just want to put out there that I agree that in some respect, endorsing or celebrating the death of someone as a result of political assassination would be worse than like Dick Cheney pass away. I expect people are going to have different kinds of feelings about that. Same thing with the Ayatollah when he died. Am I that surprised that expats are going to feel happy that he's dead? I don't, in principle, have a problem with people being happy at another person's death. I think what matters is when you're celebrating it in the way it was done, like the Rob Reiner stuff, the Charlie Kirk stuff. That to me is disgusting when it's related to political assassination. And if it's our leaders, right, our leaders who we expect a higher standard from in public discourse, especially for someone who on the merits I think deserved an honorable send off from their government. That's Robert
Saying
Mueller.
nothing is also an option, and I feel like
Yes.
they forget that. Because I
Yeah.
agree with you. I understand why in certain instances people would feel relief or happiness about someone dying, but to me the appropriate thing is just to not say anything in
Yeah.
most cases.
Well, I think it's a bit unfair to say that, okay, Trump said it, but then there's left-wing influencers. I mean, that's just social media. People know that you have to say things that cause outrage to get some engagement. But this is the president of the United States of America, the leader of one of the two major parties. I think it's just incredibly unfair to say, well, there's influencers on the left that are saying nasty things too. These are completely light years apart from each
Yeah,
other.
to say the left-wing influencers are insignificant, I would say no. Like, there's a significance of someone with an audience doing this, but when you're comparing this to the weight of who is doing it on the other side, it is insignificant to me. It's might as well be irrelevant to the conversation when you're comparing the leaders of the free world and, I don't know, XX, Republican hater 39. It's way less relevant.
Well, hang on. It's not random accounts. First of all, it's often people with millions of followers, but then more importantly, it is sentiment held by a significant portion of the Democratic base. When you look at public polling, look at like the Network Contagion Research Institute, their surveys about assassination culture, you have pluralities or even slim majorities of left of center self-identified respondents saying that things like murdering Brian Thompson or assassinating Elon Musk or Donald Trump can be partially justified. That is a disturbing sentiment for it to be widespread. So it's not just random viral tweets, right? It's like a dangerous sentiment that I think, honestly, anybody who has questioned sacred cows on the left, and I'm sure this is also true in the opposite direction. I've just experienced, I mean, I've literally had people threaten me, identify my address, harass me, who are like crazy trans activists, all sorts of stuff. So I just don't think it's fair to dismiss it as if it's a minor problem just because the figureheads aren't doing it. Because if the sentiment grows large enough, they will, right? Like the politicians are reading the tea leaves of where the public is at and where their base is at. And if enough of the base becomes like openly unhinged and violent or supportive of it, eventually the leaders will. It's just going to take time to catch up.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, Trump is not doing this because of base, and none of the Republican pundits or politicians are doing it because their base is so on board. They just think like this. And Democrats, while I will criticize Democrats for flowing with polls in ways that I say, hey, you need to be a little more principled here, I highly doubt that we'd suddenly see Nancy Pelosi going over and saying we should kill more CEOs because there was like a 60% approval rating of murdering Brian Thompson or something. I'm very skeptical of that being the result of this. And also, I think the thing you're citing too, they're not saying I am approving of political violence. They say they can understand why someone might commit it. And it really depends on how you ask that question. And I think the fear of what the left wing is supporting coming out of that is a little overblown when it's phrased as, oh my God, 30% of left-wing college students support political violence. Or is it 30% of left-wing college students can understand the sentiment of why a political violent act might be enacted and not necessarily support it being enacted,
Yeah, I mean, the question might literally be true if it's like, can you understand why political violence is sometimes justified? Like, I can understand why sometimes, like, if the question is asked in a given way, I think we should inspect those questions. But I do think, not to say that it's nothing, Brad. I mean, I've met in the wild people who are educated, who are erudite, and who are well-spoken, who have careers, professional careers, who are Luigi stans, and who support Luigi Mangione and what he did. So I don't think that it's an isolated issue. I think that there is a significant portion of people who are okay with political violence. I'm not saying that it's a majority in either party, but I do think it exists.
Well, I'll go even further. I'll say that there's a quarter probably of both sides that would answer that question that way. I mean, I'm sure there's people on the right if asked that same question, they would probably say, sure, I support political violence too. So I think those two cancel each other out. But we're talking about the
I don't know
president
if
of the
it's
United States
equal.
of America engaging in this rhetoric. It trickles down to the rest of us, whether you're on the left or the right, with his behavior and his rhetoric.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to defend it for a second. I think it's disgraceful, his rhetoric, but like I said, it's just not new. It's like we could go over it, but people have either decided they're okay with it or they're not. I've not, and I've never been.
Yeah,
But
I think the story here is not that Trump is awful and terrible, because that's not novel. It's that this is just another perfect prime. I always have this one in your pocket when anyone on the right is saying, "Oh my God, look how crazy the left is, and how violent they are, and how odious they are towards people that die on the other side." And you just hold this up and say, "Nope, I don't care. You cannot hold that over my head because you don't."
Well,
care.
I would say you should care about both.
No, well, you can't,
especially
use
if
that as
you're
a
of the
criticism
left.
party.
You should very much care about hygiene on your own side and decency and standards, even if Republicans are bad or worse.
Sure. It's a counter to them holding it over your head as if somehow they care and you don't. That's what I'm saying. But yeah.
Well, you could say you read more into the inaction by their own side in terms of I don't know what's the term you use, policing your own or whatever. And so okay, the Democrats answer those polling questions, but the Republicans, whenever something unhinged happens among it's crickets. I mean, really, who among the Republican influencer class or whatever was talking shit about Trump saying this? I think I heard Ben Shapiro.
Fox didn't even mention it. Yeah.
I mean, you'll get like reasonable Republican types who, or at least that's how they would present themselves, will like put a tweet about how distasteful it is. Trump is judged and evaluated based on a criteria that literally no other politician is. No other Republican politician is, even. I mean, if Vance becomes the nominee in 2028, or Rubio, if they were to make such an unhinged statement, it would be treated totally differently than how Trump, by media and by other Republicans. I don't know. There's just something about him that's like, I don't know. It's just such a, I don't know what the right term is, but like machine gun spray of crazy statements and things that they've become noise, I guess, to people. And
in The Simpsons, it's Three Stooges syndrome. You have so many diseases, they can't all fit through the door. So like nothing actually gets through. But yeah, it is a machine gun.
That was Mueller.
Again, I'm not trying to give you a hard time here, Brad, because I do hear this sentiment a lot. It's like whenever Trump is accused of doing something terrible, there's this attempt to like show that the left does it too. And I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying it just, to me, the president of the United States means a million times more than anybody else. And I honestly think that if Trump disappeared, our politics would get much better and there'd be less people encouraging violence. And because if they're not hearing it from him, then he kind of gives a pass to it. I mean, somebody just mentioned to me recently, he said, now that Iran is defeated, the Democratic Party is the biggest enemies of America or something. I mean, this is insane rhetoric. Like, you can show me 1,000 TikTokers who are with 1 million followers who are saying the same thing, and it just pales in comparison to that, in my opinion.
I mean, I think I guess the only thing I'm disputing is that because something pales in comparison, it's not significant. Like, if 1 million likes on a TikTok saying somebody should be murdered, really only one person out there has to actually act on it for that to be a real problem that leads to something horrible. Now, I get what you're saying, that a presidential statement is like a TikTok times 1,000. And I agree, though I guess what I would say is actually you might be surprised by the extent to which Trump's ramblings do not even get to most of the people that voted for him. Because, I mean, like Fox News not putting it on air, right? No one looks at Truth Social except like the 2% most hardcore of his base. His statements.
And Blue Sky.
Right. And Blue Sky. And his haters obviously look at it. Yeah. But I'm saying most of the people that I know that voted for Trump will never hear about what he said about Robert Mueller.
That's
I will say that I think that Brad did put out that carve out about the differences in importance of position. So I do think that you're not saying that they're exactly the same or that you don't put extra importance on what the president says. And I also do agree that since he moved over to Truth Social and there's no character limit, in some ways his messages have been a lot less pithy, a lot more like these big blocks of text, almost like how JD Vance sometimes tweets in terms
Like
of its
I
length.
barely even read them all when it's like that big ass wall. It's like
Yeah, it's but this one was one of the classic style, like very short and pithy, controversial statements. But that said, I don't know how many of these people are engaged in what he's saying on Truth Social. I happen to agree with that. And to me, it's not humongous news. It's just another indication of the massive hypocrisy and how disgusting this person is. This person who, remember, Trump claimed vindicated him in the whole Russia story.
That's a point I
yeah,
hadn't actually remembered,
yeah.
Pisco, that Trump really did claim the Mueller report exonerated him, is the word
Yes.
used. And it's like, then why do you hate him so much? Which I don't think it did exonerate him necessarily, though
Yeah.
it poured cold water on some of the accusations against him, perhaps. But like, that's an interesting inconsistency I hadn't thought of. If it exonerated you, shouldn't you be maybe not despise him so much? Like,
Same. He's like the Epstein files, which prove it was totally like not me and I didn't do anything, which are also a total hoax, which also shouldn't be released. And it's like, wait a minute, like you can't say all three of these things and hold the same position. But that's his defense. It's, oh, I just am going to say that this exonerated me.
well, you
though it
mentioned a
doesn't.
moment ago how like Trump, for whatever reason, and I think it's probably accidental, tends to like say something that pulls the rug out of the latest defense for him, and he really does do that. They'll be like, it's not a regime change war in Iran, and then he'll tell a reporter, yeah, we're trying to change the regime. Like, yeah, almost.
Wait,
I mean,
can we do a mini accounting of that with the Iran war? Because that is one of our topics, and I wanted to stress this for the audience that every day the position of the administration seems to shift on some fundamental principle of the war, either the rationale behind it, or either its ontology in the first place. Is it a war? Is it a military exercise? I mean, they
that
can't
pissed
get their
me
story
off.
straight on that.
You
Yeah,
don't
this
even
is
have to
like
go-
Russia shit.
You're stopping too close a day, Pisco. You got to go back to June of last year. We've totally disabled their nuclear capabilities, and it's over, and we'll never go back. And it was the best war. I ended it in a day. Oh, oops, we're here again, and we're never going to put boots on the ground. Also, we're sending boots over there. Also, it's only going to be a week. Also,
No, it's
been
boots
2
on
weeks.
the island. Boots on the island, not boots on the
okay.
it's
ground.
not a
There's
war, but
difference.
also we've been at war for 47 years. I don't know if you guys.
So
have
says
heard
the
that.
Secretary of War from the
That
Department of
shit
War.
pisses me off. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's so there's so many contradictions, and it really does seem that this war, just from a political perspective, was one of the biggest bonehead blunders of all time. They're now asking for a $200 billion supplemental to a war that's almost over at a time when you have, the mandate of Trump supposedly was on prices. Some claim no new wars, and, focusing on American issues. This has taken the oxygen from everything. What is he thinking, Brad?
Well, I think there's people close to him who've wanted regime change war in Iran for literally decades. He's heavily swayed by them. I think obviously the regime in Iran, at least obviously to me, is evil, has done evil things, has taken malicious steps against that are hostile to America. So I think it's pretty easy to probably spin the narrative to him about how terrible it is and how they have to be stopped. Also, he feels, I think this only happens because he felt like Venezuela was such an easy win for him, and like he was able to do it and nothing bad happened from his perspective. And so I think he felt a little bit
Emboldened. He was riding the high.
invulnerable. And it's like, well, Iran and Venezuela are very different situations and have very different military capabilities and all sorts of things. And like I said, this is not my area of expertise, but I think that's part of it. There's been a push inside hawkish conservative circles for decades for regime change or war with Iran. The people close to him, Marco Rubio, that he's really brought in,
Lindsey Graham, who
wanted
seems
this.
to like have
And
a lot of pull with Trump.
in his first term, he was much closer, much more influenced by more realist, more anti-interventionist voices. Senator Rand Paul was his golfing buddy, and Trump won and counseled him against taking action against Iran. And besides, killing Soleimani, I believe, he never did this kind of thing. So that was a big deal.
Yeah, that almost started the war with Iran, to be clear. Like, yeah, like he maybe was restrained, but we got pretty close.
Sure, but I guess he also feels invulnerable he may not be wrong to feel this way. He isn't running again. He doesn't give a shit about whether JD Vance or Marco Rubio win at succeeding him. That's the difference between Trump and like any other politician. Even like Biden, I'm sure, was rooting for Kamala. Or I know they had their issues.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, Brad.
He didn't want
know if he
Trump
was-
to win, or he wasn't indifferent to the outcome
I'm
of
not
the election.
sure. I think he was spiteful as hell.
All right.
and
Well,
this is
maybe
someone
that's
who's a
not a good
Biden
example.
stan.
Then, but you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying. That generally speaking, even if they mostly care about themselves, there is like some concern for the future of the party or like what happens after you. Trump does not care at all. I honestly believe that, and I'm not saying that just because I don't like him or whatever. I think once he's out of there, he doesn't care. He's not actually going to run in 2028, obviously.
That actually might be a good sequitur to the topic of like the SAVE Act and the ICE in the airports and how Trump is pushing so hard. These things are tied because he wants the SAVE Act to be part of the DHS funding so that we don't have ICE, doing what the TSA is essentially doing because they're not getting paid. And he wants to nuke the filibuster. Like he's trying so hard on this specific act. And the idea that like, the reason I think that mainstream Republicans don't want this done is because they know it's going to bite them in the ass if they don't have the filibuster and Democrats take power in the midterms.
Yeah.
And so it would appear to me that, he does not care about the Republican, future of the party whatsoever. It's just, what can I get done right now that is good for me? And he's like so short-sighted that 6 months from now, this could be bad, even for him before he leaves. And he's just, I don't care. I don't care at all.
Well, we probably have some meaningful disagreements here because I agree with part of what you said, but I'm a believer in the filibuster. Absolutely. So I would preserve it for exactly the reason you're saying. I think the filibuster is the reason a lot of things I'm glad didn't happen when Biden was president. But to nuke it, to enact the SAVE Act is so dumb. I actually think the fun, and you guys disagree with this, maybe you buy the Jim Crow 2.0 rhetoric, whatever. The SAVE Act to me it would have no meaningful impact. It'd be like Georgia all over again, where we were told
Really?
it would have negligible impact on voter turnout.
Why do you say that? I'm curious.
Well,
Like,
so
let's take a step back before we say anything. What do you think the complaints from the left are? And then why do you think those complaints are overblown?
Well, so the SAVE Act has two things, right? It has voter ID and then it has proof of citizenship. And the proof of citizenship is the real controversy, right? The registration requirements when you vote, having to prove your citizenship by showing some conjunction of a passport will display your citizenship, a birth certificate as with a state ID, of some form will prove your citizenship. And the complaints from the left are largely about the proof of citizenship requirement, less so the voter ID, though there is longstanding complaint about that and disagreement with that. And it's mostly that this is imposing some kind of tax, or it's going to be hard for minorities or women who've changed their names to prove their citizenship. There's frankly a lot of misinformation about what the SAVE Act does and doesn't do, because also in fairness, it's been updated a lot. And the latest version is something significantly different from the first version. But the primary reason it would have a negligible impact is that no one has to re-register to vote under the current edition of the SAVE Act. So everyone who's currently registered to vote is still registered to vote. And then even the provisions that may have proved burdensome in the original bill, for example, for married women, which by the way is now a Republican voting demographic, not a Democratic voting demographic. So even if they were suppressed from voting in some small percentage, it's not going to meaningfully rig the elections.
That's the claim. The claim is that it wouldn't change turnout numbers.
Yeah,
and I actually am not. Yeah, go for it.
Well, I guess I have I have voter suppression fatigue. I've been told so many times that Jim Crow 2.0 is here. Like in Georgia, Biden said it. All the Democratic politicians, when they enacted their election law a few years ago, then they had the highest record turnout just a couple of years after the Republican legislators enacted restrictive voting changes, and then they broke the record for voter turnout. It's like people aren't
But that's
dumb.
not evidence of it not happening. That's just voter turnout being higher than whatever suppression tactics were used.
Well,
and
actually, I think
do you
if it was
acknowledge
actually
that-
Jim Crow 2.0, you wouldn't have then had the next election shatter voter turnout records.
Sure, if you're suggesting that the comparison is a little disingenuous, I'm
Wait, hang on.
sympathetic to this
Jim Crow
argument.
relates to the purpose behind the restriction, not necessarily the effect of it. So when you have certain states like North Carolina or different areas, I'm thinking about Ken Paxton's whole effort in Texas as well that went up to the Supreme Court, where it seems like race-based considerations or acknowledgments about the race, the correlative effect between race and voting patterns. If that's the purpose behind it, listen, maybe Jim Crow 2.0 is a bit of like, I don't know, political hyperbole, but I don't think Listen, I'm fine with, but the thing is, I'm fine with using political hyperbole. For example, Don't Say Gay Act, right? This is out of Florida and shit. The law didn't literally say you're not allowed to say gay, but it's called political hyperbole. I mean, the point was that it might
totally
chill.
I think that kind of rhetoric is why people view Democrats as a boy who cried wolf on a lot of things, and that's why these accusations are thrown.
Oh, really?
Don't say gay for is a totally.
Before we get to the don't say gay, sorry, Brad, I had to run out. Because like if in North Carolina a judge finds, hey, Republicans targeted black people with surgical precision, is this not Jim Crow 2.0, regardless of the effect of whether or not it disenfranchised just as many people as Jim Crow? If we can verifiably in a court prove that you went after black votes.
Keep in mind, Jim Crow was often facially neutral laws that were just applied or targeted in a given way.
I think so first off, we were originally talking about like voter registration rather than gerrymandering, which is what I think you may have been referring to with the racial intent.
He was in the Paxton case. In North Carolina, they specifically sought out IDs primarily used by black people and disqualified those IDs as viable forms of voter ID. And this was struck down in the North Carolina Supreme Court because it was like, this is so blatantly racist that like this can't possibly be allowed to stand. That's the extent of the kind of stuff and the history of Republican voter suppression that we're dealing with.
Honestly, I would have to look into it more, but I think that's contemptible taken at face value, obviously. But there's a question of scale and magnitude invoked by something like Jim Crow 2.0 that's simply requiring people to have a form of ID, even with some sort of malicious intent. It is not, I think, an appropriate or apt comparison.
I think the problem is that you could say the same as, like, I could use colorful and gentle language to say, I think having a little test to make sure everyone is a reasonable, intelligent baseline person when they vote is a completely, most people might even find that agreeable until you realize, oh, voter identification is in the same way that intelligence tests before voting were ways to suppress the vote. There's no reasonable explanation that shows, yes, this like makes voting more integral, or we're combating this, very empirically measurable voter fraud. It's, I want to suppress the vote, and this is always the intention behind almost every single one of those laws. Now, granted,
I don't think voter ID laws meaningfully suppress the vote.
How could they not if in any way they prevent certain people, whether it's by small amounts of time, money, or bureaucracy, from voting? It's going to drive the vote down.
Oh, I'm sorry. Meaningfully. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're not going to observe a 0.15% reduction in voting. I'm saying almost everyone is still going to be able to vote. And then maybe this is where we like have a fundamental disagreement. I'm not such a hard line. In fact, I view like democracy as the worst system except for all the rest. The people who are incapable of complying with a reasonable basic voter ID requirement in order to vote, should they be voting?
It depends on why they can't comply
Brad,
with it. Like, what if you live in a place that doesn't have a DMV that's open at reasonable hours and you work a 40 to 80 hour work week, right? Like, these are very real small restrictions.
Literally, you just described a demographic of people who all of whom basically have IDs. Like, they have driver's licenses. They drive themselves.
I've done research on this specific thing, and there's a very huge swath of the population who does not have the required voter ID for this kind of stuff, and it doesn't have easy access to it. It's not just the workers; it's disabled family members. It's people who work and like can't, like, maybe they don't drive, maybe someone drives them everywhere. Like, if any amount of people, whether it be hundreds, thousands, millions of people who would be disenfranchised by this,
there's not millions. I just
regardless, even if it's one person and you're comparing it to the cases of voter fraud, which are almost negligible, like none of this is justifiable.
Unless that's where I would agree with you. That's where I would agree with you.
That's where we should go, because like I agree with Brad on the following, which is I'm not convinced that some of these voter ID laws actually reduce turnout. I haven't seen that empirical case, and part of it is because I think the backlash by the coverage of it absolutely will cause like this reverse, excitement, or Democrats will go to the polls or whatever. So I'm not convinced that it actually has the desired effect of suppression. I do think that that's oftentimes what the purpose is of the laws, and they're bad for that reason. And they're bad because I think, some of the laws, depends on which, burden your fundamental right to vote. But anything you can say about the negligible effect it'll have on turnout in terms of the empirics, you have to raise in virtue of what presumably they're doing with respect to voter fraud. Like, what is the big problem with voter fraud that would require additional burdens?
Can I offer an alternate theory of the case, though? Because I agree with you that the typical Republican case for these laws, and to be honest, like, I think the SAVE Act is mostly not that big a deal, and I find the doomsday rhetoric horrible. I don't think its passage is necessary, nor do I necessarily endorse it. Let me clarify that. However, you're right. Voter fraud is very documented. Voter fraud is very rare. I'm not an election truther. A lot of people believe there's like widespread illegal immigrants voting in our election. I don't even think that makes sense at face value. If I was an illegal immigrant, the last thing I would do is jeopardize my, potentially getting caught and deported in order to vote in some election. However, there's also increasing distrust in elections and election outcomes. And there are lots of reasons for that. But I think things that most people, even most Democratic voters, think are common sense and have mass support in public polling, like having to show an ID when you cast a vote, would be a significant step towards restoring trust and faith in our elections. And so for that purpose alone, I think there could be significant benefit, not because it's actually stopping tons of people from illegally voting, but because it may convince swaths of the public that our election results aren't rigged and fake.
Because they're so empirically minded.
Yeah.
Can I say, sorry, just one final sentence is like, I think the SAVE Act passing and then Republicans still losing by a lot would be the most likely outcome if it passed. It would be kind of hilarious because then they sure as shit can't claim it's rigged.
No, but Brad, they'll just move the goalposts. They'll come up with something new. Like it's not going to make anyone restore trust in our government, our elections, or anything, because the distrust comes from the rhetoric coming from people like Donald Trump in leadership positions. So tomorrow he could say 10 million dogs voted in the last election, and people will be like, we need to make sure dogs aren't showing up.
They're doing birth certificate fraud. They're doing passport fraud.
Like goalposts.
Yeah, like if we're doing this to restore, like I agree, there is a problem with trust in the elections, but that problem is not because we don't have voter ID. The problem is because Republicans, specifically Trump, but Republicans in general, have amplified this to such a degree as a non-issue as to say that millions of illegals are voting. And when he tries to investigate this, can't justify it because it's just not true. But he's able to manufacture this mistrust, and he's going to be able to do this no matter what. That's why they bought the domain for Stop the Steal before any of the justifications they had for that the election in 2020 was stolen, because they knew they were going to come up with some sort of narrative, mail-in ballots. Maybe it was, the hanging chads, whatever it is, they're going to come up with something to make you distrust elections. And this is just a waste of time. And if you want it to not be a waste of time, say, okay, we'll support voter ID. Everyone gets an ID when they're 18. It's free. And they'll never support that. They never will, because they know that's going to not do the voter suppression they think they're aiming for.
I think like with the proof of citizenship, you should be able to get a copy of your birth certificate. Right now it's like $30 or whatever if you need to order one. Why not make it free? I agree. I think that would be a perfectly reasonable compromise.
But Brad, you're a libertarian-esque. I know you don't like the label, but I think you're sympathetic to like Rand Paul's like government's bloated, inefficient, and to agree, I am. Do you think that it's fair and is not going to cause voter suppression if everyone needs to go to the DMV at some point within a month and timely get the documentation they need to vote? Because I can see that going wrong in so many ways. I don't trust the DMV type government to be fast enough to let everyone have what they need to vote.
I mean, a number of states already have these kinds of requirements. It varies state to state.
A number of them don't.
So I'm saying, and people are able to figure it out here. The DMV in Florida, where I am now, is actually remarkably efficient. It takes away my libertarian talking point.
Well, you're in Miami, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's like a very populous thing. There's a very famous video. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this. This was like the first video I ever made. Was there was a Republican correspondent going around like Harlem, and this was when everyone's like, "Oh, voter ID is racist. Voter ID is racist." And he's asking people in Harlem, "Do you know where your DMV is? Can you get a driver's license?" And they're all like, "Yeah, of course I can. Of course I can." Oh, see, left wing, they're the real racist. Well, Harlem, Miami, these are populous areas with tons of DMVs and tons of government infrastructure in closely located areas. And there's places all across the country where it's just fucked for anyone trying to get this sort of stuff. It's not easy. It's got weird off hours. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot to travel. And that you can't expect that this is going to just have a non-zero or non-significant effect on this.
I think the hard time I have with the argument you're making is that in those rural places, you already have to drive to go anywhere. I grew up but I went to high school and as a teenager lived several hours outside of Boston. You couldn't walk anywhere. It was rural. The DMV was not particularly close. I think you'd have to drive like 40 minutes to get to it. Yet everyone drove everywhere, and Artie was going to the DMV to get a driver's license. In these rural communities, there's not public transit.
And
you can't walk places. Like
you're
they
making
already
my
do
point for me,
this.
though. Okay, so you had access to a lot of things that allowed you to do that. You had to drive a lot. What if there's a disabled person who literally just doesn't have the infrastructure for this? What are they supposed to do? No, can they do it? Maybe. Maybe they can Uber there. Maybe they have the money. Maybe they have a friend who can drive them. But all of a sudden, you've now created this much larger barrier, especially if what the SAVE Act is suggesting cuts off mail-in voting. That person just might not be able to vote. That might be the thing that pushes them over this is too difficult for me. And is that really what we want to do, just to restore an integrity that is not actually going to get restored because the Republicans are going to move the goalposts? Like, that's why I'm so heavily opposed to this.
The latter point, I would say Republicans may still claim that, like, oh, you're right. Now they're doing birth certificate fraud. What I'm telling you is that the swaths of the right, or people that vote Republican who are not total cultists, obviously that is some percentage, those arguments will not carry weight with them the less opaque and more secure the system seems to them. Our election system is confusing. It is messy. It does seem to an everyday person engaging in it unsecure. I mean, I walk into my polling place. I don't have to show an ID. I could just as easily. I understand that they do signature matching and they do all this stuff, but to an average person, it doesn't seem secure. And I think the more you could correct that, the less receptive they would be. Maybe Republicans will still claim it's all rigged anyway, right? So I think they'll stop getting away with that once Trump is done. Like, I think if JD Vance or Marco Rubio pulls that in 2028, it just, for whatever reason, he has this magnetic grip on people. And I just think way, way, way fewer people would go along with it for anyone else.
Well, I would say, Brad, I would agree if you could show me empirically that the amount of people who don't vote now would increase more than the amount of people who disenfranchise. I might actually be okay with that, but I don't think that data exists, and I'm not confident that it does.
The amount of people who don't vote now?
Yeah, the people who would otherwise then vote because they're like, well, voter ID, I trust the election, and now I'm going to vote.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the percentage that trust
the separate issue.
Oh,
right. Not so much that they would decide to vote or not decide to vote. It's just like the separate societal blight of
like, if you poll people, do you trust that our elections are fair, or do you think our elections are rigged? And you look at the demographic breakouts of who lacks faith in our electoral system. I'm saying I believe that would improve if we had some of these basic things like voter ID in place.
How do you feel about the fact that the Republicans trust the results of the 2024 election?
Well, that's why I think it's bullshit. The same way that, like, in 2020, some of the members of Congress that were complaining or supporting Trump, saying the election was rigged, literally had won their own races by 1 or 2%
on the same ballots.
In the rigged election. I mean, it's obviously, now I think what they would say, in fairness, Pisco, and maybe I won't do a good job straw manning this, or steel manning.
Too big to rig? Say it. Say too big to rig.
What they would say is that some of the provisions that they viewed as so susceptible to fraud in 2020 were temporary pandemic expansions that were no longer in place in 2024, of like things like mail-in ballots and drop boxes. And honestly, I don't know enough about it to really do that justice, but they do view and it is true, I believe, that there were some pandemic era expansions to the election that made 2020's election operation different from 2016 or 2024.
So the one that a lot of people point to is Act 77 in Pennsylvania. And that one was so funny because that one was actually a pre-COVID reference to universal mail-in voting in Pennsylvania that occurred at the end of 2019 before there was a pandemic. And that one was permanent. I know that there was much less mail-in voting in 2024, but that's just because there wasn't a pandemic, or at least it wasn't as there wasn't a pandemic anymore.
Don't go Taylor Lorenz on me. The pandemic is over.
Liberal surrenders. Okay, but I just want to say, I am not convinced that if they pass the SAVE Act, it would be the end of democracy in America. I'm not convinced that if they pass the Save America Act, that all of a sudden Democrats would lose the election. I think that these kinds of laws can have unpredictable conclusions. Like you said, the married women, that is a pro-Trump, a slightly pro-Trump, pro-Republican voter group. And so I'm not, and I do think the Democrats also right now have a huge advantage when it comes to enthusiasm. And so I'm not entirely sure what the result would be if this were passed. I do think less people, all else equal, would vote. That's just my intuition. But more than that, for me, the principle is just burdens on fundamental voting, on the fundamental right to vote. And that if we're going to have a burden on the fundamental right to vote, let's think about what is leaving behind ample opportunities to vote, what is too burdensome, what is not burdensome enough, or sorry, what is necessary for security. And in that context, I don't think that it's necessary for some sort of like huge societal problem. And I'm against it on that ground. If we're going to burden a fundamental right, it's not like we're talking about driver's licenses here. We're talking about one of the core rights that Americans have. But yeah, I don't know if they pass it, it'll be the end of the world. I think it's cope. All the Republicans who say we need to pass this and this is the big issue, it's cope. The Trump administration is sinking. They're not doing a good job, and this isn't going to save them from that.
Well, I'll go further than you guys. I hope they do pass it because that means we get rid of the filibuster. And I'd be curious, Brad, to hear your thoughts on why we should keep the filibuster. You said it stopped the Biden administration from doing some stuff you disagreed with. I think it just holds back progress. Each side should be able to enact the policy they ran on that people voted for. The spirit of the filibuster has been completely lost in today's day and age. Nobody's interested in compromising and working with the other side. And it just leads to obstruction, which prevents Congress from solving modern day problems. And we have these outdated laws that are failing to rise to the occasion. I say, let's get out of the way. Let each side pass what they want. I believe the Republican Party's legislative agenda is so toxic, like the trans stuff in the SAFE Act, that they'll be thrown out of office in the next election and they'll suffer mightily. So I'm all for it. Go ahead, pass it. And also the Wall Street Journal's editorial board said this would hurt Republicans more than Democrats because Democratic voters are more likely to have the documents than
I agree with that
Republican
assessment, actually. Democrat, increasingly the party's bases are switching and you have more affluent, more educated people leaning Democrat, and they will be better able to navigate any hurdles than like lower income working class people, generalizing here. So I agree with you, which is one more reason I don't buy the idea that the SAVE Act is Republicans rigging the election for themselves. On your point about the filibuster, that's the point, that it blocks what people think is going to be progress. It is a counter-majoritarian institution by design, and that's, to me, why I like it, in that I think it is probably bad from a policy, like especially with economic growth and long-term. What you need is consistency and reliability, and that's been part of what is harmful about a lot of Trump's like crazy tariffs and stuff, is the instability of it all. For investment decisions, these kinds of things, having massive economic and society-wide policy swinging like a seesaw every 4 years. Obamacare instituted, Obamacare repealed. Massive tax hike instituted, just kidding, we undid it. Like $20 minimum wage enacted, just kidding, it's back to $7.25. That is like deeply harmful. And
but Brad, is it more harmful than inaction and public completely losing faith in the institution itself?
Yes. I would say yes.
I think that we have enough counter-majoritarian institutions in this fucking country. The Senate already was designed with that in mind. The presidency just reflects it back from the Senate. We have, obviously, the mere fact of state governments themselves that in many ways replicate this this counter-majoritarian impulse, the existence of state sovereignty, in other words, to say nothing of how the apportionment happens and how we have far too few members of the House of Representatives to account for the growth of the population. And so I don't know why we need to add another level of counter-majoritarian impulse that's not in the framework of the Constitution. Well, no, preserving it. It's not a constitutionally mandated thing. The Senate is empowered to create their own rules. And so this doesn't have the same kind of like gloss that the framers, their design had. We're adding another level. We might as well add a filibuster for the House of Representatives while we're at it.
Yeah, well, Brad, I appreciate it's supposed to be like the whims of the Democratic moment. That's why they're constant, and that's why the House is so much.
And the Senate is not, and that's why the Senate has 6-year elections. That's why the Senate has staggered terms, and that's why the senator is 2 per state as opposed to a population referendum. But that's an extra thing. That's an extra thing that's not mandated by the Constitution. Why do we need more than that's already preserved? Oh, sure, but like, why do we need more counter-majoritarian impulses to a body that's already incredibly anti-majoritarian?
Yeah. Or why can't we actually build consensus around things.
Sorry, and then it's replicated again because the president has the veto, and the presidency, of course, is determined in virtue of your Senate plus your House of Representatives. So it's counter-majoritarian all the way down. It's a complete bumble, and they're inactive and they're hated. Brad, Congress is despised. Their approval rating is so fucking low.
The House is more despised than the Senate, and the House is much more Democratic than the Senate.
I don't
think
true? It being 13% approval or 12%. I don't know if it makes much of a difference. But I'm a filibuster appreciator. On paper, it makes sense. You have to work with the other side. You have to have their input. Nobody gets railroaded by the majority. It makes sense, but it's not working. It's not working. That's the problem.
I guess what I would say is do you guys remember how the process played out with the judicial filibuster?
Oh yeah,
And
that went away in 2 seconds.
Appointments, yeah.
That went away in 2 seconds, and it didn't. And principle was thrown to the wind.
How did it go
matter.
for Democrats? Democrats lived to regret.
Oh, my naive Brad. My naive Brad. So you actually think that if it were the case that the Senate, oh my God, he just died, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, that if Harry Reid hadn't fucked around with the filibuster for the lower federal judges, that we wouldn't have seen the end of the filibuster for judicial nominees during the Trump term? You can't be that naive.
They
would have gotten rid of it
entirely
anyway.
Possible.
No fucking shot. You've seen Trump. You've seen now a decade of Trump. You've seen the kind of magnetic hold he has on Republicans when it comes to his nominees, et cetera, et cetera.
And yet they literally won't get rid of the Senate filibuster today.
Granted, they won't get rid of the
short of scrapping it today.
Granted, they won't get rid of the legislative filibuster because that doesn't serve the interests of the Republican senators because they don't want it. But they would think very differently about putting in some Federalist judge. If it really was in the interest of the Republican senators, they would get this shit done. They don't want to get it done because they like having some more security on their votes and not being blamed on shit they don't want to pass. I'll just let you know, I don't think Lisa Murkowski or half these Republican senators even want to pass the SAVE Act. You mentioned it, right? Like, these are their own ballots, and they like state autonomy over their own shit. They don't want to give this over to the federal hands. There was a thing called federalism, and Republicans used to respect the notion of states' rights. And so I'm not convinced that if this weren't in the specific interest of Republican senators, that they wouldn't get it done tomorrow. And if there were such an issue, I think that they would get rid of it in 2 seconds.
I think you guys have a lot of, it's interesting because I feel like Democrats always think Republicans are way more ruthless and effective than Republicans think they are, and vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
Like MAGA thinks that Democrats are like just shrewd, ruthless, cutthroat operators, and progressives think Democrats are like feckless cucks who never do anything. It's just an interesting dichotomy to observe.
Well, what's your view? I mean, Democrats sometimes are feckless cucks. And Republicans seem ruthless as fuck. Mitch McConnell was ruthless, completely ruthless, and it feels like we have
the filibuster. He was able to withhold, and make up a precedent and withhold a Supreme Court nomination for months and months and months. And these tactics are not.
But I think if they were totally ruthless, they would have abolished the filibuster.
No, but it's not in their interest. It's not in their interest to abolish the filibuster right now because they don't give a fuck about the SAVE Act.
Well,
what they're able to go for it, sir.
Well, I was going to say they don't have solutions for any problem, so their whole shtick is just to obstruct and hold back progress in this country. Like they have no ideas. Like look at their legislative agenda right now.
They're blaming the ICE and airports thing on Democrats. Like they posted what DHS said. Like you can thank a Democrat for this because they don't have a good solution to the partial shutdown.
Well, I mean that's a whole nother topic, but the Democrats are partially responsible for the government being shut down.
I disagree. I put it 100% on the Republicans' feet. They control whether the filibuster exists or not, and they're not engaging in good faith with the Democrats.
Oh, well, I guess the filibuster question is different, but I'm saying accepting the filibuster as the status quo, Democrats withheld the votes that led to the partial government shutdown.
Right.
Which is fine. That's their right, but...
Well, but the Republicans unilaterally control if the filibuster stays in effect for DHS funding, and they've chosen to keep it, meaning they want to work with the Democrats, but yet they refuse to compromise.
Okay, I don't think that's fair. Like this is how the budgeting and funding always works, and the fact that they could rip up the rules that have been in place for a very long time to circumvent the Democratic obstruction doesn't mean the Democrats.
Well, it's not just that, Brad. I mean. it's not just that. I mean, they've tried to pass quote unquote clean funding packages for the other components of DHS as well. On that logic, those would not be
I
bypassing
understand.
normal
Like
rules.
Democrats have
Yeah.
proposed standalone TSA funding. Now,
Right.
from the Republican perspective, it would be insane to pass that because then the Democrats could keep DHS partially defunded and ICE defunded forever, and you would have no leverage. So I just don't believe that either party has zero culpability for the shutdown.
All I'm trying to say is, I think it gets down to there's not an easy way around in my mind. It gets down to your intuitions about the merits of the underlying disputes. Like, do you think ICE is being lawless on the streets and that the asks the Democrats have are reasonable, or do you not?
Well,
and then
what
also
I
your
mean,
intuitions
that's
about
the
good
thing.
faith.
Is I guess I'm not involved in the inside baseball enough to know the extent to which Democratic legislators are operating in good faith and you could compromise. But I think a lot of the Democratic demands for ICE are actually pretty reasonable. And the best path out of this would be, and it did annoy me that the Republicans like made an offer and like 3 out of 4 of the things were just like, we won't deport US citizens or like,
It's
an
like
actual offer. Like,
yes.
we're going to end masks. We're going to have ID badges. Like and if you could actually get Democrats to agree to that, I don't know if they actually would or if they're just posturing, but say that is an option. That'd be my path out of this as a Republican lawmaker for sure.
Well, but just to go back to the question of the filibuster, do you see any examples of where the filibuster led to better legislation? Because you brought up your example
Stops
was
bad legislation.
Yeah, that's what I can say.
That's the point.
But your reasoning was it stops bad legislation, but that's not the purpose of the filibuster. The purpose of the filibuster is to I would disagree. I would say the purpose of the filibuster is to compromise and work with the other side to get their input so that you have a better bill that's more palatable to more people in America. But to just use it as an instruction
slim
tool is
majorities
bad.
from ramming through premature and half-baked policies.
But why? They won. They should get to implement the policy they ran on.
If you believe in unfettered raw 51%, but I don't. That's why we have many things taken off the Democratic table because the masses are ill-informed and subject to populist sway and do very terrible things often with 51% support of the population.
We have 50 states that use that principle and there's no complaints, right? Like we accept what our state legislatures do and they don't have a filibuster.
Well, actually, there's still a lot of counter-majoritarian systems at the state level.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Like this need for 60% of the vote is almost impossible. Like if you go put anything on the ballot and try to get 60% of the vote, it's almost impossible. So the fact that we need it in the Senate, I feel just holds back legislation in general. Yes, some bad legislation is going to get through that may be damaging, but a lot of good legislation is going to get through too.
I mean,
I think it has to do also
that's the trade-off. I agree with you. Those are the trade-offs.
At a time period where
taking chances and trying to solve problems instead of just being
the reason I don't though is because it's extremely hard to undo things once they're put in place, especially things that give free stuff to people or give any form of subsidy, especially because the costs are so diffuse and the benefits are so concentrated that it's very hard to undo things. So maybe I would be on board with what you're saying if all the legislation sunsetted and it automatically expired after 5 years or something. But it's like
we have to remake the tax code every 10 years.
I feel like this is an opposition to what you were saying before, where you're like, oh, these big swings are going to like harm the country. Like you get this thing, remove this thing. But now you're saying, well, maybe we couldn't remove the things that were in place and it would be harder to. And this is also a bad thing.
Well, that's the difference. There are different types of policies, which are it's very hard to remove. What I'm talking about is specific like subsidies or
defined benefits packages, Medicare, that kind of stuff.
What I'm talking about with swings is more like policies like that are social policies, like gun control, like things that are a switch you can flip. But once you start giving out benefits, this is why you just see like subsidies grow over time and different special interest groups getting more and more and more. There's going to be very concentrated opposition and pressure to never take it back. But then
can I try one last way with you, Brad? One last way, which is the following. In reality, the imposition of the filibuster, it's not really it's not really bucking the majoritarian impulses of the country. It's not ceding power to the majority of the country. It's ceding power to one person. and that person is the president.
All right, now you're actually getting me, Bisco. You're getting me.
Yeah, the real separation of powers issue here is Congress's inaction should not be viewed in contrast with the population. It should be viewed in contrast with the president. And the fact that Congress has been so inactive on tariffs, on its war power, etc., has been ceding ground to the most powerful branch by far in this country, the president of the United States. You want to complain about big swings? Talk about how different the country is 1 year after Trump has been inaugurated.
Yeah. I will say, out of every argument you've made, that's by far the most compelling to me and my libertarian impulses. Now the problem is just like, I think the framers in many ways were geniuses, and the system they designed was in many ways ingenious, but they really did rely on this idea that each branch would jealously guard its powers, and they never could have anticipated a Congress full of cucks who literally like want as little power and responsibility as possible.
It's crazy.
I don't get it personally, because I've always thought that if I could never run for election. I have way too much baggage, way too many edgy tweets, all sorts of stuff. I don't have any Nazi tattoos, but all sorts of other stuff would come up. And I just am not built for it in so many ways. But if I was actually in the office, the taking responsibility and heat and making people mad at me, I would be the Thomas Massey saying, no, everyone does have to show up to vote. I don't care if it's COVID. Like, I'd be using the power in deeply unpopular ways that I firmly believe in. Whereas like they all seem to want as little power and responsibility as possible, but just to cling to the prestige and access and future lucrative careers as lobbyists that being a member of Congress will entail, I guess. I don't know. I can't relate to it. And I think it's the unforeseeable. And I guess what I'm saying is, to your original point, with or without the filibuster, if they're still all fundamentally cucks, the executive will still continue to fill the gap that they're leaving.
I hear you. I think that there's for sure a broader abdication than just what's entailed by the filibuster here. And that relates to all manner of different policies or different levers. I think most prominently right now in the context of the Iran war, it's the war power. Yeah, 100%. And here, I mean, there's just no question that this is a war as initially understood. I mean, it's armed conflict with another country. It's, we're talking about boots on the ground, etc. And Congress has just like, what they're wanting to do is maybe implicitly we'll have this vote on the supplemental package using our appropriation power, different power than the war power, to try to signal where we are on the war, but so tentative about it. And even so it's more of a party alignment issue now. And faction has really taken a hold of the country.
Well, it's dead on arrival. Trump said he's not going to sign anything until the Senate passes the Save America Act. So he can't sign a supplemental package.
But will he stick to that?
Well, he won't stick to that.
Trump, Trump is a consistent man, if anything.
Well, also,
we know that.
House Republicans said they wouldn't vote for any bill either, like Anna Paulina Luna down there in Florida.
They'll do whatever they're told. They'll get in line.
Can we circle back real quick to the Save Act? Because I feel like I didn't get to talk about this enough. Really quickly, sure. Brad, I know you're thinking that this is hyperbolic, but when I say millions of people, I'm not saying that lightly. I mean, this is analysis of 47 million people, I think, or something like this, vote by mail. Like 70 million people don't have passports, who might not have access to their birth certificate if they have changed last names. If it costs $160, maybe $200 to get a passport, plus travel costs, plus waiting time, plus DMV bureaucracy.
But you don't need
We don't need every single 100% of these millions of people to be disenfranchised. I expect a majority of them wouldn't be by the Save Act. But if you look at the elections that are determined by fractions of percentages, in the place that matters, I mean, look at 2000, look at any of the counties in the recent elections where people won by like 1 or 2 votes. Like, this isn't just like, oh, it's disastrous because half the electorate can't vote. It's disastrous because you're swinging enough in enough places that you lose House seats here, state Senate seats here, governor races here, maybe even the general election in counties that are the key swing districts. And to say that like, oh, yeah, it's not going to be 100 million. They say, hey, 47 million people vote by mail, 70 million people don't have passports. Yeah, okay, 130 million people are not going to be disenfranchised. But this is potentially tens of thousands of people with just that extra barrier, enough to swing elections, right? Like, how is that doomsaying?
I think some of the barriers that are described literally like don't even exist. And you talked about people who've changed the name on their birth certificate. So under the latest version of the Save Act, if you're a married woman, or actually when I get married, I'm going to change my name. And obviously that's a little different being a gay guy. my birth certificate will still say Brad Polumbo, and then my ID will say, my new name. Under the SAVE Act, all I have to do is sign an affidavit saying I've changed my name, and that's why there's a discrepancy. That will be provided a form, and then they accept the changed birth certificate under the latest version of the SAVE Act. It's like totally addressed that what was a legitimate concern about what will happen if your documents don't match. And I guess the only other thing I'd say is everything you've described will cut both ways. And so that's part of when I say it won't meaningfully, like, even if 10,000 fewer people vote, it'll be roughly 50-50 Republicans and Democrats. It's not going to change the outcomes.
Well, to be clear, my stance, I'm not saying this just as I don't want Republicans to rig the election. This is, for me, I fundamentally disagree with disenfranchisement, regardless of who it hurts. Like, yeah, like, cool. All right, my side won in the end of this policy I think is horrible, but I still don't think it's okay. And I haven't seen meaningful analysis to say, oh, definitely this will be better for Democrats. It might be. I just don't think this is justification to say, like, oh, yes, maybe a bunch of people will be hurt by this. However, it might restore some sort of integrity in the elections or faith that people don't have, that I don't think would exist regardless, no matter how many laws you pass, if Trump is the
I guess I'm not. That's why I'm not telling you that I'm hanging my hat on, I love the SAVE Act. It must pass. Elon Musk saved democracy. It all dies without the SAVE Act. I'm just telling you, at the end of the day,
it's not apocalyptic. You're not saying it's apocalyptic. No,
it's not going to change.
I agree. I agree. It's not apocalyptic. I just want to say I'm not on board with federal ID until we have a mandatory national ID. And Democrats should, in my opinion, package it, withhold it until we get a more comprehensive reform of voting. I have no intention of giving Trump a legislative win, even if I agreed with the SAVE Act in this context.
Well, sure. That's a whole other question.
All right. Well, we've talked with most about the topics. If there's any other news, we could get it out now. But I think IRI has been itching. I can see he's shaking. His eyebrows are twitching.
Wait, can we just say, wait. It'll take 2 seconds. Brad, do you fuck with the war?
Like in Iran?
There's no way he
Yeah.
supports this.
No?
All right, sick. All right, fuck the war. I just gotta get that out.
Right,
I mean, I do have sympathy for, I know some people who are Iranian expatriates and immigrants and Iranian Americans, and like, I have a lot of sympathy for why people want to see the regime fall.
Me too.
I just don't think any of us think that this leads to the regime falling. Would you be in that category as well, Brad?
I think it's unlikely, and then I also think that sometimes and U.S. foreign policy demonstrates this, just taking out an evil regime can result in something worse for the people that comes next. And so I think it's unlikely you actually do take out the regime. And I think even if they were to, unless they were to just permanently occupy Iran, the vacuum they left, something worse could come, which as bad as they are. So, but I just say that I don't think, I hate the strand of anti-interventionism that starts to whitewash the regimes themselves.
Yeah, agreed with that. I mean, this regime is despicable. 100% agreed on that. But I don't think it will result in what we want to see. And it's being run by incompetent and corrupt people who change on a dime, and it's illegal. So glad we all agree.
Other than that, it's great.
But other than that, Mr. Lincoln, how was the play?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So you mentioned, obviously, you're much more right than any of us. We're lib and learn, not centrist and learn. You think Biden administration 2020 to 2024 was a disaster, and I think everyone here might disagree with that. Can we touch on some of that? I want to rumble about it.
Yeah, give us one thing so we can engage in that.
Oh boy, honestly,
don't say DEI or I'll hurt you.
Well, let me, Brad. Do you think Kamala would be doing a worse job right now than Trump?
No, I think she'd be doing a lot of things I would really, really hate and strongly object to.
Worse than things you don't like that Trump is doing, or just different?
I think that the Harris-Walz administration would not have nearly the same level of chaos, incompetent. There'd be a different kind of incompetence probably, but unprofessionalism, blatant corruption. There wouldn't be crypto scams like selling for meetings and all that kind of thing. There'd be a whole nother basket of issues. And honestly, guys, like, we could relitigate Biden. We've been going at this for an hour and a half. I kind of prepared to talk about all the other stuff and don't have everything.
It's fine.
I mean,
No, that makes sense. I did tell
actually,
you that it
though,
would be an hour and a
Pisco,
half.
I
We
will
can-
actually say that as much as it will trigger you, top three to five, DEI is on the list. The Biden-
Really?
It's on the list.
It's absolutely
interesting.
I think the way that they approached race and equity instead of equality, I find deeply corrosive and harmful, and frankly, reverse discriminatory. And maybe if you guys want to do a marathon Biden Harris sesh, I will.
We'll put a pin in it. We'll definitely put a pin in it, and we love having you. But there's one observation. It's not even a challenge I'm gonna do right now. An observation I've had of a lot of these like Trump critical, centristy, I know, labels or whatever, centristy, more Republican-y types, that in all of their lists of like the most corrosive thing that Biden has done or Biden did do, you'll get some weird stuff now. They'll be like Afghanistan withdrawal. You'll say people will say inflation. People
I was
going
to
to say,
do you want my 5 list?
Sure, but DEI is almost always on them. But yeah,
but for good reason, I would say. What?
Perhaps we'll get into that in our conversation. But what's your top 5 or top 3 or whatever you want?
Border, spending legislation, Afghanistan, foreign affairs, obviously the massive cover up, dementia, senile, sleepy Joe, embarrassment, and then I think identity.
Trump sharted in the White House. Allegedly.
Did he shart? Is that real?
Allegedly. And then so I can
think
say it.
I think identity, culture war, DEI, I would say is the 5th item. I think a lot of it was really harmful, but
I liked when he almost walked into the rainforest. That was a really funny moment.
Can we take a step back?
Did you see that?
I don't know exactly your politics, Brad. Like you gave us a good spiel at the beginning, and you said mostly that you like feel politically homeless. But and maybe the SAVE Act is more of an indicator of this because you think people are doomsaying about it. But can you really look at everything the Trump administration is doing and still say, if it were, let's say Trump ran for a 3rd term, let's say he did it because he does float the idea. Maybe you're saying, okay, no, he's just bloviating. Would you still be able to vote third party knowing how much damage is being done? Or would you be able to say, hey, fuck the Democrats and all this stuff I don't like, DEI, blah, 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 but it just pales in comparison? And the same way that I can say, you know what, Dems, maybe some of these like progressive pundits did say some shit I did not like about Charlie Kirk. However, when I'm comparing this to the damage, just because this is insignificant in comparison doesn't mean it doesn't matter, but holy shit, does it make it an easy choice to pick what party I'm going to align myself with, or at least throw my support around until there's a more reasonable option for me to actually meaningfully differentiate between these two things.
Well, I think I will directly answer your question, but the first thing is I don't throw my support around or advocate for a political party. Like that's just not what I do. And so I don't feel the pressure to do that for the Democrats over the Republicans because I was never shilling GOP. I was never saying, go vote Republican. Here's your election. I love Republicans. I've always been an independent political commentator discussing.
That's fair. But to talk you up a little, you have a huge audience and you got a lot of people to listen to. So whether or not at the end of the day you say, go vote for this person, people are going to vote based on what you tell them because you are someone that people listens to. So you don't have to.
The glaze.
You don't have to say go vote. They're going to do it. If you spent your whole career shitting on Donald Trump, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump if they're your fans, and vice versa. So like this is a responsibility I think that you as a platformer have.
I think that so the answer to your question, like if you told me the election came down to my singular vote. And I could redo 2024, knowing what I know now. And this would upset a lot of my fans if they watch this, because a lot of them did vote for Trump. Then I would vote for Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Now, I hate that I'm saying that. That makes me feel slightly nauseous, and I would be her biggest hater.
You're not the only one. Nick Fuentes is endorsing something similar for the future.
Oh, bro, don't
that's not a good comparison.
No.
He's just being stupid.
But why not think of every election like that, Brad? Obviously, we can't see what a year of one of the candidates running the country would be like, but why do you not feel every election hinges on your vote? That's how I vote every time I go in, and I'm in California.
Then you're like incorrectly assessing the significance of your own vote.
But
That's true everywhere, though, Brad. That's a cope. The swing state thing is a cope. It's astronomical that you're going to affect the outcome of the election wherever you vote, whether for
You're
president,
making my
whether
case
that's
for
in
me more
California.
why I feel fine
No,
voting my
No, but
conscience.
when, when
but
people
you have an
when people
audience.
take issue, right? No, but okay, two things. One, when people take issue with how someone votes, it's a way of saying not that you have an instrumental effect on the election, because obviously the odds of that are 0.000 no matter where you vote. It's just saying like, what is the world you want to see between two viable candidates? Or they're saying someone with a lot of influence, take Joe Rogan or Brad Polumbo. Then you might have more of an effect than like a given
I guess what
voter
I would
as a
say-
voter.
What's the world you want to see? I want to see a world where we have more than two options, and you can't, if you only hyper focus that for now all we have is these two, like that is the hurdle that stops us from having more than two.
No, voting lesser of two evils doesn't stop you from having a third party.
If
You have to
everyone
build
feels
that
that
party
they
in between
can-
elections. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to vote for the better choice here, and that's going to get me, Gary Johnson as the head, third biggest party in 2028. That's just not going to happen.
It grows over time, is what I'm saying. Is that if you have a viable third party and more, or the other parties have to adapt to pander to those voters, if a significant enough percentage of them starts defecting.
Do you, Brad, do you believe ranked choice voting gives third parties a better chance of winning?
Honestly, I'm gonna cop out of that and say that I liked the sound of ranked choice voting. I've seen some like mixed results of how it's played out, and I haven't read about it or studied it enough to have
That's
a
fair.
definitive take.
Well, I
fair.
bring it up because I just want to say I think that Democrats are the only ones who are supporting it, and I think it's the only chance you have of breaking the two-party stranglehold.
That's why I liked
would
it
just
in
be voting
theory.
Dem all day long.
That's
if
why I liked
cared
it in
about
theory.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly why the idea when I first heard about it years ago of ranked choice voting did appeal to me, is because then you could vote your first preference, and then I've just, like I said, I've heard mixed results on how it's actually played out, and I haven't looked into it because, again, guys, it's like I like to just talk about the news and ideas. And my first few years of my career, I covered elections. Like I went to presidential debates. I wrote like today this candidate released this proposal. I'm not in that lane now. And to your idea that like, oh well, I have an
An audience.
obligation
You're important.
and a responsibility. I guess maybe you have a point and I should reconsider that. But in my head, there's not a single person who would change their vote based on what I say.
No way. You can't believe that.
Maybe there's
have
like
you talked
10.
to your have you ever talked to a fan ever? These people love you, not you, but the proverbial you. Like, yeah, there are people, there are
Polumbo-mania.
people with different opinions. They don't just watch one person, but the people that watch you, that consistently watch you, they range from sycophantic to, oh yeah, I have them on, to hate watcher. But a lot of these people take your word as gospel that you're their news. And the idea that like you couldn't influence 1, 10, 100, 1,000. I mean, a person of your size is going to have a significant weight. I mean, you shit on Hassan. I saw one of your recent videos. We shit on Hassan all the time for pretending like, oh, I'm just a guy. I'm in California. My vote doesn't matter. Dog, you have millions of viewers, and absolutely you could change.
But I guess
portion
I'm
of
just
them.
like 1/1000th the size of Hassan. I would agree
And
with
I'm
what you're
smaller
saying if I had his kind of
yeah, but I
clout
still
or
do it.
audience.
Well, okay, maybe you can't get people to vote a certain way, but you do have a percentage of influence on them. You're probably one of a couple of people that they watch and that
But
they
I feel
respect.
like if anything, guys, you're ignoring the fact that like most of my audience is right leaning, and I'm already steering them towards more criticism and skepticism of Republicans than than almost anyone else they watch. And so it's like, to the extent that subconsciously my content is changing their voting, it is probably in that it is pointing out like, I criticize Trump about this, I criticize a Republican about this, and because they like me and trust me, they see the validity of my point, and now they like just stop blindly trusting this or going along with it. I hear from people all the time who tell me they were more far right and they started watching my content, and now they're a lot more skeptical. And so like maybe those people didn't vote for Trump, but
Yeah.
I didn't have that conversation with them about who to vote for.
Yeah, but this is to my point. This is a perfect example. It's like you didn't have to do that yet. You've already done this probably to a significant amount of people. And I'm just saying that extra step is going to mean a lot to a lot of people in your audience, I would say.
It would
Unless
mean a lot
you
to
think
me, Brad.
it would
It would mean
be
so
so
much to me.
detrimental that you'd lose half your engagement. Maybe. But I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
the thing is, to be honest with you, I already have lost a lot of viewers and engagement by consistently criticizing Trump. And I've
That's based.
restructured my business model to kind of accommodate for that. I mean, maybe you guys are interested in this inside baseball of like, but I mean, I essentially have a channel that's just pure entertainment and like totally unserious that makes a significant amount of revenue. And then on my main channel, I'm increasingly just saying what I think and saying whatever needs to be said. And if I lose followers, so be it. And like when I'm going to drop a video tonight criticizing Fox News for not covering the Mueller thing, I'm going to lose money on that video between my editing, between my thumbnail. It's going to get like 10,000 views max. Like this is.
I do appreciate that about you, Brad, because the incentive for financially, you could be making a lot more money doing the kind of grift, kind of Trump.
Oh my God! Do you know how much
millions
money
of dollars
Benny Johnson must be rolling in? Do you know how many male escorts he can probably afford? Joke.
Whoa!
Allegedly.
Whoa!
Joke.
What?
Allegedly,
he's just sometimes he weighs the amount of money in male escorts. He's not saying anything about Benny Johnson's
I'm not saying
behavior.
anything about his Google ads or tea or rumor. No, allegedly
a medium of exchange.
It's a joke, satire, humor, no defamation, but also
wait. So can I inaugurate a segment? I want to name some right-wing influencers for Brad Polumbo and see the first word that comes to your head when you think of them.
Oh God, you're gonna get me in trouble, but let's do this. This will be fun.
Okay,
go ahead.
Somebody clip this.
Okay, Caroline Leavitt.
Shill.
Benny Johnson.
Gay.
He's just gay.
Tim Pool.
Unhinged.
Dave Rubin.
Oh boy. Flexible.
Nick Fuentes.
Sinister.
Lindsey Graham.
Again, gay.
That's the first word, huh? Wow. Ashley Sinclair.
I don't have a strong take on her.
Ooh,
Erica Kirk.
Sorry?
Erica Kirk.
Victim.
Charlie Kirk. Don't say dead.
Just say gay. Just say gay.
No, not gay. Rose colored.
Oh, Katie Miller. Couple more. Katie Miller.
IQ.
Oh my God. Poor Katie. Poor Katie. What are you doing? Cat turd.
Oh,
cat turd 2.
Yeah, cat turd 2.
The word would be slop.
Slop. And finally, Andrew Wilson.
Unhinged.
Brett, I think we have a lot of questions for you because like Soy Pill said, we're libs here and you're center right. I actually think more people in America are with you in their political thinking than us libs. That being said, I think your camp is going to grow as Trump continues to push people out with his crazy actions. And I wonder how you feel about people joining you that are like disillusioned with Trump as time goes on, and like how you steer the Republican Party or even just the right in America more in your direction.
Well, I don't think I will be able to. I'm extremely nihilistic, and I think everything's going to get worse. But if I would love for what you're saying to be true, and I will take the opposite approach of a lot of online leftists. And when people agree with me, I will welcome them in. And I will not say, how could you ever thought that was a good idea? You were so stupid. Take your whippings.
I will.
Say sorry. Say sorry.
No, I'll say, I'm so glad that you agree with me now, and I'll welcome in. And that's what the right has done much better than the left. Too much. They'll take any lunatic, grifter, criminal that suddenly agrees with them.
Yeah.
Welcome in. Oh, we don't care about your, sex offender husband or boyfriend or whatever. Come on stage with us.
It's actually a criteria.
They've gone too far in that. Like, you have to have some standards. But like, I think broadly speaking, the left is the opposite, where it's like, no. There was this saga on TikTok where this woman left MAGA and she just started, she got, and she announced this and she's like, I made a mistake and I'm sorry. And all her comment section is just thousands of people telling her they don't forgive her. She's a piece of shit, rot in hell. You will never forgive you. You will never trust you again. You're evil. And it's like, I sort of understand why they feel that way, but that is so anathema of how politics has to work.
You got to take the win.
Based Democrat, like those are the women, those white women who regret voting Trump are the ones you need the biggest arms for if you want Democrats to win. And instead, you're going to scold them.
Yeah,
how they
we kind of need people
a little taste of their own medicine.
Well, I don't know. Soy Pill,
white
would
women
you
have
accept?
Had it good for too long in this country. I'll say that. I'm
They've
not
had it so easy.
White women? Oh,
yeah, they've had it so easy. Soy Pill, I have a question for you. Would you accept with open arms Brian Lynn Holohan? What's his guy's
Brian
name?
Hollyhand?
oh my
Yeah,
God.
if he was like, oh no, I'm a lib now, would you accept him?
Well, here's the thing is like, there's a difference between accepting like, all right, you're voting for me, cool, you're on my side, and accepting everything they say and trusting these people, because the people that were dumb enough to be duped by MAGA are dumb enough to be duped again by any number of things. And there's a lot of people that I see drifting away from Trump that are going to hop back on some next crazy train just as fast as soon as it's popular to do so. And so I'll say, you know what, good job. And I'm going to try to find a way to make you stay, but I'm absolutely not going to stake my life on these people. I'm absolutely not going to like, welcome them with like, oh, here's a cookie for you, like, finally deciding.
Yeah, but his name is Brian Lynn.
Thing. Well, Brian,
So
why does that matter?
I think that's an illustrative example, actually, because were he to stop supporting Trump, the right thing to do, in my view, for Democrats would be like, not to be like, well, you're a piece of shit forever, but it also wouldn't be to say, well, now you're going to be our activist and our pundit. And we're going to uplift you and put you on shows and give you a show, because he'd still be fundamentally a 19-year-old who doesn't know
That's
anything.
What they did, Brad, with Glenn Beck. Do you remember Glenn Beck, like post 2016, and like Samantha Bee and all these people were having him on because he was anti-Trump, and it's like, oh wow, the principled conservative Glenn Beck. It's like, you guys not remember the past 16 years where he's got the fucking chalkboard and saying that Obama's like secretly Hitler? Like, you can't elevate these people.
I don't know what you're talking about. I found his conversation with AI George Washington explaining how George Washington doesn't actually believe any of the things George Washington wrote about war powers. I thought that was real. No.
Oh my God. It was really fucking weird. These guys, I want to say, I think a lot of these like late night comedy people, a lot of these old news people like Chris Cuomo, when he fell for that AOC AI thing, I'm like, some of these people have been overhyped, overemphasized as being curators and smart for years and years and years. If there's one good thing about the like rise of alt media or whatever, is we all have to play in the same pool a little bit, and some of these people, I think, like the Glenn Becks of the world and the Chris Cuomo's of the world, are being exposed for low IQ, in my opinion.
Well, you also don't realize until you are in the industry, and I've only been adjacent to it, but I've had a foot in it, that most of the people on cable Fox is actually the least like this of the networks, from what I've heard. They're just figureheads who read teleprompters written by someone else. Whereas like even in the new media space, it's mostly there's some support staff, right? But it's like, we're deciding what to say and how to cover something. That is absolutely not how cable news operates. There are entire staffs of people. I mean, there was a host that I was very friendly with, and I knew her monologue writer. And I'm like, wait, she doesn't write her monologues? Like, no, there's a full-time job of somebody who it is to write her monologues for her every day that she then reads from a box. And that's why I think you see what you're seeing when a Chris Cuomo goes off in the wild, or somebody that then becomes unmoored from that. You realize that there was never that much happening up there.
Yeah, and also they're getting horny on Maine. It's crazy.
Wait, what? Did I miss a chapter?
Chris Cuomo, he's like, who's this lady? When he was talking, you know that Miss USA woman who's now like hates Israel and is making the rounds? I forget her name.
Oh, but, the one who was on the Religious Liberty Commission.
Yes. And Chris Cuomo was like, who is this, on Twitter? You just got to have a little more discretion than that, Chris.
Yeah, it runs in the family, that sort of stuff.
They're just Italian. They're Italian.
To your point, Pisco, of like, can we welcome these people with open arms? We have examples of this where you have to reestablish that trust for me to really feel like you're on my team and that I should prop you up. It's like Elizabeth Warren, former Republican, who has now done so much progressive work, CFPB, like all this stuff in her life. It's like, I know that you're not a dumb Republican who's just going to switch back on a whim. Like Kat Abu Ghazala, she didn't win, but like similar type of thing where like you are so progressive now. I would be surprised if you flipped on a whim again. And you just don't want another John Fetterman type situation, although that's kind of like the opposite sort of switch. So
we're almost out of time here, Brad. I appreciate you hanging out with us so much. But out of all the 2028 candidates, left or right, is there any of them that stick out to you that you could see yourself voting for?
Well, I did say Rand Paul,
but he's not going to run.
He's not going to run though.
Oh, he's making moves to run, guys. He's going to run. He's going to run in the 2028 presidential Republican primary. He won't win, but he'll run.
Interesting.
Okay, so what about candidates that have a chance?
No is the short answer. I mean, like you're saying who I would enthusiastically support.
Yeah, what about somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene? I feel put aside some of the crazy stuff.
No,
she's calling Trump out.
Crazy stuff.
Saying he lied. She's appealing to that.
This is an example of what we just talked about. She's still a crazy lady.
Yes.
This is literally, she suddenly agrees on a couple things, and so now we're supposed to embrace her like she's not batshit insane.
Did you want to say crazy bitch just then, but you held back?
I did, but I'll say crazy bitch.
You can say crazy bitch.
Crazy bitch.
People can change.
She's not changing, dude. She's like 45. Like she's not a 19-year-old who had a woke phase and is now sensible. It's like, do you just think she's hot? Like, what's going on here?
No,
I never understood that.
Geico caveman type. No,
I never understood that.
51 years old. People do not have authentic political re-evolutions in their 50s.
I don't know. When did Elizabeth Warren switch parties? It was pretty late, right?
It was sooner than that. She was like a Harvard professor when she was 40. I don't think she was.
If you're a professor, you're basically a Marxist anyway. Let's just be honest about that, especially in some of these northeastern states. But I think that you would be curious about Marco Rubio. I think you'd be curious.
The only reason I'm not, though, is because Marco Rubio, untethered from this administration, and like maybe it would just be in an alternate universe. I think if there was a Republican, say that Trump crashes and burns the rest of his terms, Republicans lose big, and somebody like a Glenn Youngkin runs as like a return to normalcy Republican candidate, that's somebody I would potentially be drawn to. But even then, I would be like, okay, I'll call balls and strikes with this person. There's nowhere I'm gonna.
What
about Grissom Gavin?
Wait. Warren switched parties when she was 47. So yes, MTG is older, but it's not too late. I'll say that.
Well, I guess what I would want to know is like, was that her changing a piece of paper, and had she already had an ideological revolution, but like long before then? Because sometimes people just stay registered.
It probably wasn't nearly so drastic as an MTG suddenly becoming a Democrat, considering some of the stuff she said. Because she was,
but MTG's also though she hasn't suddenly become a Democrat. Like she's still against transitioning kids, and she still wants to ban abortion. And like, I don't know. People do too much swinging from one extreme to the other. I agree with some of the critiques that MTG has made, but I'm not going to suddenly pretend that I view her as a credible person when for decades she has given us reason to not.
Yeah. Like if Trump calls Chris Christie fat, I'm not going to start supporting him, but he's right. So
has Chris Christie hit the Ozempic yet? He should.
He should.
Can we agree that body positivity is over, guys?
It's over.
Jillian Michaels cooked those fat activists.
Speaking of Jillian Michaels, I mean, she lost all her clout when she left Patrick Bet-David's show. I mean, I don't really think that Jillian Michaels was appropriately placed as a political commentator, but I do think that we need to bully more people. I think that we need to bully MAGA more. I'm not convinced that this nice bullshit is working.
What do you mean by bully MAGA, though? Because I think that like you should aggressively debate and challenge them, but I'm not sure that mean-spiritedness from the left, more of that or like name calling will help anything.
I'm not convinced that being nice and accepting is going to help anything.
But those aren't the two options. It's like,
all right, what are the options?
Okay, someone like an Adam Mockler goes on CNN and he like calls people out and challenges their points very effectively, but it's like substantive. He's not just going and telling them like, you're a stupid hack, you're a liar, your mom is ashamed of you. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's like two genders of Democratic debate bros, and like the one that I think needs to be retired is the one that just constantly calls everything racist, offensive, sexist, or how could you say that? And the one that's like just points out contradictions or stumps people with gotcha questions that are substantive, that's what I think is effective.
So you
Adam's
stand
a
mock.
friend
You
of
stand the
mine, but
mock.
My biggest criticism of Adam is not mean. That's my biggest criticism of Adam. So I disagree. I think he's more mean.
Stand him in the sense that like I disagree with him on most things, but I think he's a very effective debater and communicator.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
he didn't bully Michael Knowles
Adam.
enough when we were there. That's all I'll say.
Oh, how was
Michael
that, by
Knowles.
the way? Because they asked me to go do that, and I said not at the time they wanted, but maybe I'll go do it in the future.
I mean, if you're okay with being in a room full of people who hate you, it's fun. Michael Knowles is a little pushover. You can just kind of like talk over him.
That's the thing. He's actually like too polite for this job. If you know what I mean. Like, but I actually think
the fascist ideology is just not the fascist, fist of
power.
Well,
he is.
He's like the little, the sultan, like the little vizier, that like is like, oh, like whispering in the ear, but then the hero like, touches him and he just collapses into a ball of dust. That's
so. I actually think the idea of like angry randos screeching at you. It's one of those things that I think would be great for me because I'd probably get some clips out of it that would pop off. But it's the same thing as like I kind of want to do a Jubilee surrounded or something like that. But at the same time, there's something fundamentally bad about it in that this environment where you have a political professional versus randos, whether it's Jubilee or it's bar fight, it's not a fair fight. So whether it's Mehdi Hassan or whether it is Michael Knowles in that surrounded with the Jubilee, when the surrounded participants are not also professionals, when they're just random people they bring in or like a Instagram person.
Or Pearl Davis. Did you see Pearl Davis against Anna Kasparian?
She's terrible at debating, but at least she's just, can I say it?
Yeah, you can say it.
Low IQ.
She's just retarded. It's not like there's nothing happening up there, but she is at least a professional. This is ostensibly her job. But I'm saying when it's just random people, it's not a fair fight because even if I'm wrong and my views are evil, if I'm a full-time intelligent professional, I'm going to be able to dismantle your arguments if you're just an average Joe. So it's like that kind of content, while it can be super entertaining and make for viral moments, is like
so you condemn Charlie Kirk. You condemn Charlie Kirk. He's a bad person.
I think the style of like him versus college students is exactly what I just described and is not like constructive debate. Is it entertaining? Am I going to tell you I've never clicked and watched Charlie Kirk destroy woke non-binary feminists? I'm not going to tell you that because I'd be lying. But like,
yeah. And Brad, you just had to practice your like face, your shock face. Like, wow, try it right now. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Thumbnail. Look, that's really good. You're a natural.
I've never done those like college slop visits, and with the current political moment, I wouldn't. But maybe in like peak woke, that would have been fun for me. When people were really over their skis on some of that stuff.
Be careful if you do surrounded because some of those normies that they invite are people like IRI goes and cooks the person in the middle. So you might have
or their plans like Sarah Stock.
I agree that some of the people in the circle aren't randos, but like some of them are, especially the one that Jillian Michaels just did against the body positivity people is the most one-sided surrounded I have ever seen. It's just her as a person who's worked in fitness and health and knows her stuff, slapping around these people who like just parrot TikToks and literally know nothing. It's like, I agree with her. So I'm here encouraging it, but it's not I want a better debate, like a more serious opposition. And I'm like, is this really the best y'all have got in the body positivity community? But I don't even think it is.
We do have to wrap up. Breaking news: Markwayne Mullin has been confirmed as DHS.
Oh wow! My captain. Fetterman voted for him in committee.
I
what
know.
what a fucking
in fact,
loser.
Rand would have been able to stop him if not for Fetterman.
True.
The bipartisan Fetterman hate. You gotta love it. What we use at the end here, we shout out. Thanks for coming on, Brad. This was great. I know it got a little
Awesome.
contentious, but trust me, it could have gotten way more contentious.
No,
So
we
this is
ran
just a-
over too.
this
We're
is
having
just
so
a
much
little
fun.
taste. Yeah, it was a good time. So what do you got going on? I have your link in the channel. Anything big coming up? Any big appearances? You said maybe a Jubilee, maybe a
Oh,
Fox
well,
News. What's going
that's
on?
no, that's just theoretical. I would love to do that, but no, just check out my podcast, Brad versus Everyone, on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. And then
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
just make the rounds. Yeah, I guess I'll let you go, and then we'll do our little wrap up. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Bye.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, Brad. Nice
Appreciate
chatting
you.
with you.
Have we?
That was fun.
When's the last liberal guest we had? Was it Ryan Getty?
We had Laksha.
No, Rashad and Laksha.
I don't know. Hutch might contend. He's like not liberal. He's anti-liberal, right? Laksha, I guess. Yeah, Laksha. I don't know.
You
I
want to
like
get
all
another
guys.
liberal?
That's fine.
We should
No,
like
no, no,
be.
no.
We should.
I don't
be,
want another liberal. Well, Taylor Lawrence is next. We got to get Taylor Lawrence. Guys.
Oh shit! You're right.
Can you make the Monday Pisco, or do you want to do?
I
it
can't make
Tuesday?
the Monday. I have to do the Tuesday.
Okay, we'll
I can't make
try
the
to plan
Monday.
it for a Tuesday. We'll see if it works. But
Okay, please,
what's going
please.
on
I
with
don't
you
wanna miss it.
otherwise this week?
I-
Pisco? You got anything?
So-
Oh, go ahead,
I got.
Guy.
Oh, I just want to say, I hope we can get more right wingers. I've been thinking about who can I invite that would come on here, because I think it would be fun. I think it'd be interesting to go over news with them. It's a chill atmosphere, and we'd be able to go over a bunch of points.
Yeah, I mean that's like your
That's all
bread
right.
and butter too. So
I do want to sometimes signal boost libs though. I feel like I was gonna say we need to touch libs. I don't mean it like that. We need to prop
need to press
other
our libs
lib
together.
channels. Yeah. So definitely at some point we should do that. And also we are working to get Dylan Burns on the show as well. We'll try to schedule him in as soon as we
Nice.
can. So that'll be fun. In terms of what I have going on, I finally have the TikTok set up to do it. And
Ooh.
I've learned how to at least do it on my phone. And Rinyald is helping me. Rinyald's notebook. He has also a lib channel, I believe. And so shout out him. And that's been fun. I did only one so far, but it looks like it's gonna be fun.
All right, Guy, same stuff. Your TikTok stuff or anything else?
Yeah, no, I'm just I'll plug my TikTok debates Monday through Friday. Still having a blast cooking these fools on TikTok. So come hang out.
I got to shout out Hutch. I know he's on a little family emergency right now, but he is doing another debate. I guess the final debate on like where should the Democratic Party be? It's him, Josiah, Destiny, and they're all going to be on Wick. And I think that's on Wednesday or Thursday. So everyone should
Interesting.
definitely check that out. And then
Wait, is this about whether or not we should
like prosecuting
like,
Trump? Like what sort
be
of
like
like
Pinochet or
actions?
something? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing a big stream on Saturday. I can't say with who, but big names will be there. That's all I can say.
Wow.
Big people, big things
The
are
first
happening.
black president. Congrats, Soy Pill. I didn't know that you'd get that caliber.
No, they're doing this like it's this marketing campaign where like it's a secret. What's going on? And I can't disclose until like Wednesday or Thursday. But keep a lookout for that.
So dark money shit. We
yes.
know.
It's
You
dark
know,
money.
you
You know it's dark money. You know. Anyway, yeah, that was Live and Learn. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Catch us maybe next week on Tuesday. We're gonna have to schedule that and see if Taylor can make it. Because Pisco's got to be there. And yeah, and Hutch should be back unless something happens yet again for a third week in a row. So
I think he's quiet quitting, guys.
no,
No.
Hutch wouldn't do that. He's our boy.
He wouldn't do that.
Hutch wouldn't do that. You think
do that.
you think he organized this family emergency?
I think
No,
he told
no,
his
no.
dad.
You think this
to
is a
do it.
conspiracy?
No.
There's a false flag to give an
False
excuse.
flag, yeah. False flag exit from the
If
podcast.
it's true, if it's true, we need someone to be bald. Like, I'm sorry, if you
Wow.
want to be the next host, you're gonna have to cut off all your hair, or we should think about getting a female presence. Maybe Hutch should transition. Maybe that'll be.
Wow.
Maybe that's
Hutch
what this
Female
is.
life form, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
A chat.
On that note.